Hey, you said you were going to ask me questions.
That's where you just say hello. This is gonna be a shit show.
It's going to be a shit show from hell.
All right.
Hello there.
Welcome to the Bucklesberry Lemonade Podcast.
On today's episode, welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of Bucklesberry Lemonade. I'm your host, Lisa, joined by my co-host, Tim. Today, we delve into a dark chapter from the past, a twisted tale that shook the quiet town of Kinston, North Carolina. Our story begins in the late 80s with the tragic shooting death of insurance salesman Billy White. But the real horror unfolds 3 weeks later when the investigators charged Sylvia White, his seemingly devoted wife, with hiring 2 hitmen to orchestrate his murder. As we peel back the layers, we discover Sylvia's involvement in the disturbing death of her 4-year-old stepson, Little Bill, and the very real possibility she was responsible for another husband's demise.
Wow.
So, my sweet husband, what do you think?
And hello to everybody. Well, I think this will be a pretty good show today. Did you or your family have any dealings with Billy's White?
I don't think so. I'm not. If we did, it was did with my parents or my stepdad. I don't remember it.
Gotcha.
Did you?
Yeah, I had insurance with Billy. I sure did. It seems like everybody did. I mean, that's how well known he was in Kinston.
Well, then we probably did, and I just didn't know it.
Yeah. It's Do you remember the case though? You remember when all this happened?
I remember. I do. I do remember.
Yeah.
It was shocking.
Very shocking. It upset our little town for sure, didn't it?
Because he was a big deal around town. He was. His personal charm made him a top insurance salesman.
Oh yeah, I mean, having been in the insurance world, he was a legend.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, he was quite the prominent member of society.
Yeah, he was. He really was. Well, tell us a little bit about the background. Tell us what we already know.
Well, we can start with Miss Sylvia. While still in her teens, she became pregnant by a man named Woody Taylor, whom she later married.
Not any relation to the James Linwood Taylor, though.
No. They separated after 16 months. In 1959, she married Leslie Ipot, with whom she had 2 boys. The family did well for themselves, but Leslie suffered from chronic health problems, and he sank into depression, and in 1967, he died by supposed suicide from a single gunshot to the side of the head.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then Sylvia, she met Billy after he divorced his first wife, Annetta Jones, with whom he had 4 children. She suffered from postpartum depression following the birth of their youngest son, Billy C. White II, in 1969, and was later institutionalized, according to North Carolina's Sun Journal newspaper.
Wow. That's almost like a Brady Bunch right off the bat, isn't it?
You're not kidding.
So that's seven kids altogether.
Yep. And as a single father with 4 children, he was having trouble adjusting to his new family life. But fortunately, Miss energetic neighbor Sylvia Ipot, she lived a few doors down, and she began helping around the house, cooking meals and doing the family's laundry. But of course, that's being from the South, that's what we all did back then. Not now so much, but back then.
But it makes you wonder if she didn't have her hooks set. I don't know. So it seems Sylvia became Mrs. White in December of 1971.
Yeah.
They moved into a bigger house to accommodate their combined family. Billy had 4 kids, Sylvia had 3. Despite the joyous new beginnings, tragedy struck on the afternoon of June 21st, 1973, when Sylvia arrived at the hospital claiming 4-year-old Billy Jr. had swallowed a piece of plastic.
His skin, little Billy's skin, it was white, and he was pronounced dead on arrival. And they extracted a large, wadded up piece of plastic from a laundry bag from his throat. The nurses who tended to him later testified there were no torn edges, teeth imprints, or chew marks on the plastic, according to court documents.
Yeah, and doing the research, this piece of plastic was roughly about a 10 by 12 inch piece of plastic.
Oh my gosh.
That is a lot of plastic for a 4-year-old to voluntarily shove into their mouth. I mean, you got to take into fact gag reflex. I realize some people don't have it, but the majority of people do. And, you know, to think that she did this, she killed probably 2 husbands here. But the reality of it is she shoved this plastic down a child's throat. Can you imagine the terror that this
in that child? Yes.
Horrible.
Yep.
And it seems like directly after all this happened, Billy White Sr., he kicked his work into complete overdrive.
Yep.
And it paid off. But by the early 90s, he was one of the top salesmen at then North Carolina-based insurance company Jefferson Pilot. I worked for Jefferson Pilot.
Did you?
I did. And according to Greensboro News and Record, he and Sylvia were mainstays of their church and of the Kinston Society. And I have always heard this, whether it's true or not, I do not know. But like I said, I worked for Jefferson Pilot, had my own insurance agency for a while, and the income that was floated around for Billy White is incredible. We had always been told he was roughly around $450,000 a year in residuals based on the business that he had written. And can you imagine for that time period in the 90s?
That was a lot of money. That was like millions now.
Yeah.
They spent 20 years together until his disappearance.
Yeah. And that's, as we dive deeper into this and we uncover the insurance policy she was after, man, it's the amount of money that she gave up for this. You understand what I'm trying to say?
I know. Why not stay? I mean, think about it. She probably could have got a lot of money divorcing him. I mean,
yeah, I think so. But I think a pattern's already been established here.
Yeah, especially if she killed her first husband.
Yeah, and she's went to jail for the murder of Billy Sr. and little Bill too. So let's break down the setup and how everything looked for the murder. Do you want to go into that, or you want me to do it?
I can do that, and then you can do the next part. She's okay. Well, she's crying, very hysterical, and telling me that Billy went to meet a man. I guess she called when she was calling it in. She's crying hysterical, telling me that Billy went to meet a man somewhere out in the county to sell a large insurance policy, and that he had not come home, former Kinston Police Assistant Chief William Speedy Ingram said.
Yeah, and the talk that we always heard when dealing with insurance agents is that Billy White would go anywhere at any time, and Sylvia White had actually made this statement too, that he would go anywhere at any time to sell insurance policies.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, some things you don't do.
So it looks like Sylvia told the investigators that Billy had went out the night before to meet a man named Timmy Connors, who wanted to buy a $500,000 life insurance policy.
Kinston. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it looks like the agents in the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation combined the county and surrounding areas looking for this mystery man, this Timmy Connors, but they couldn't come up with anybody. And I can't calculate it off the top of my head. Maybe an insurance agent's listening to this. The $500,000 back then, the payday on that was huge.
Yeah.
You're probably talking a few $1,000s, if not more, and that's why he's went out. So looks like they launched a massive search, including an aerial search, and that's when they spotted Billy's car on a remote woodland road, and this would have been in Trenton, North Carolina.
Yep.
And you can go from there with what Mr. Ingram said next about seeing Billy.
We could see Billy White laying on the ground on his back with a white shirt with a big red spot, an officer stated. You could even tell from the air that something bad had gone wrong. He was dead from 2 gunshot blasts, one to his chest, another to his side. But no shell casings were found at the scene. White's pockets were turned out, and his wedding ring was missing. The circumstances surrounding the shooting death of Billy White in January 1993.
But something is that, they took his wedding ring, they picked up shell casings. They were thinking through this. They were thinking through this, and
they were trying to make it look like it was a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But the multiple gunshot wounds, they indicated it was a different motive.
Well,
they wanted him murdered.
Yeah, and that's what Speedy Ingram said that these people wanted to murder Billy White. I mean, that becomes pretty obvious at this point,
Oh, and then the investigators during the inquiry, when they discovered that Miss White had been having an affair for more than a year with a man named James.
Yeah, isn't it funny that one of the hitmen, James Linwood Taylor?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's rumored that she was having this affair, that they had checked into a Raleigh hotel together the day of her husband's murder and stayed there from noon to 2. And I wonder if that's just not setting the stage so that she has a second alibi. Because the other alibi is she supposedly went out to eat dinner with a friend and that checked out. So
yeah.
But it seems that when James was confronted,
that's what I was laughing about.
He immediately came clean, and he spilled everything on Sylvia White.
He didn't wait. He couldn't stand it. He shouldn't have done it. He should have went to the police before.
Well, it says she was brought in for questioning, and she claims she was at a cosmetic seminar, like a Mary Kay or Avon. I'm pretty sure for that time frame that would have been a Mary Kay
probably
convention. Yeah. And he stops by to see her and then leaves to go on this. And if you think about the way things are, we've lived around here all our lives. He stopped in, spoke to her, left, went to Trenton, and that was it.
Yep.
So that was it. And but she again stated she had dinner with a friend. The investigators were able to confirm that, and she never admitted to having an affair with James, and so they have no evidence connecting her at this point to her husband's murder. So it looks like they hit a standstill, and they did a tip line for anyone who had information about the murder. And Billy's friends in the local business community where they all chipped in to offer reward money. Why wouldn't they?
Of course. They could do it.
Yeah. And then what happened on February 6th?
Got their first big break when an anonymous tipster called in. He said, I remember going to a party and this long-haired guy asked me if I knew anyone that might kill somebody for him. Smith said. He said, I was shocked. The informant said it had been about 2 months since the party, but he recently ran into the long-haired man again. When they were chatting, the man admitted to killing Billy. The informant didn't know the man's name, but he said he was a local construction worker.
The authorities eventually tracked down the man fitting his description. His name?
Whoa! What
James
was his name?
Linwood Taylor. And he was no stranger to authorities. And I have to say, he was no stranger to me either. I actually knew him.
Did you?
We called him Linwood. If you remember, at the time, you lived down the street from a balloon shop.
Uh-huh.
He was constantly in there buying balloons, sending them to one woman or another.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he liked the women folk.
Oh, so he was close.
But when this all came out, this was a shock. Because this, you and I did one podcast where we talked about serial killers and we talked about murderers and the possibility in your lifetime.
And you were that close to him.
Yeah, I actually have had many conversations with this man. And granted, I'm only 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, somewhere around there. I must not have been a good judge of character because you would have never convinced me.
He would have been one.
Yeah, never. But I guess, that's the way he is. But he was tall, big, thick, mustache, long hair, thin, very quiet. But he did like women. He was a womanizer.
I'm trying to think. The name kind of sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if it's just from this or.
Well, you know what? You may have met him too. You never know because he was all over everywhere. I mean, he was known around town. He was a handyman. He would do things for a buck. Obviously,
Well, not like that.
No. I'm saying
we didn't go to school with him or anything, did it?
Oh no, he's in his 70s now.
Oh, okay. He would have been. He died by execution.
No, that would have been his uncle. That's the Bayston fellow that was
okay.
Yeah, by lethal injection.
Got you. Okay, I got him wrong then.
So it's the informant made a comment, the guy that called the tip line. He said about 2 months since the party, he ran into the long-haired man again. And Linwood Taylor had long hair, down to his waist.
Oh, God.
Always pulled back in a ponytail. And he made the comment as they were chatting, the man admitted to killing Billy. The informant didn't know the man's name, but he knew that he was a local construction worker. So he's admitted to somebody.
Yeah.
That you got, we've done this. And come to find out, he when description was given to authorities, they knew. They were able to track him down because he was no stranger to authorities.
You know something? I have learned one thing from watching all the ID channels I watch. You never admit anything to anybody.
He did, though.
I know, but you don't.
Wow. Well, Linwood was a little bit of a talker. But it says here he was no stranger to authorities, what we'd written out. He had been operating as an informant in drug buys to the Lenoir County Law Enforcement Agency. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is.
And,
you wouldn't have think he would have wanted to do that.
So it seems that then he heard the police wanted to talk to him, and he came in on his own volition. And although he claimed to initially have no involvement in the murder, he ultimately confessed following an 8-hour interrogation.
Uh,
So Taylor told investigators Sylvia had offered him 20 grand and a van to murder her husband because she was having an affair and wanted to cash in his life insurance policy, valued at as much as $200,000. And Taylor recruited his uncle, Ernest West
oh,
Baisden, as the trigger man for the sum of $300.
oh my goodness! Now I know.
So he's going to get 20. His uncle was going to get $300.
$300 takes somebody's life. Nope.
$300.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to do the setup, or you want me to walk through that?
Well, on the night of the murder, Taylor posed as Timmy Connors and set up the insurance buy at a remote location. And after Billy arrived, Baisden emerged from the shadows and fatally shot White. Like his nephew, Baisden turned himself in and made a full confession.
You know something, though? The graphic part about this, now these guys, they've called, they've set all this up, they've planned this out. Because see, when Mr. Billy White got there, Linwood exited the van pretending to be Timmy Connors.
Mm-hmm.
Baisden, his uncle, Ernest Baisden, gets out, reaches down on the ground because they have already put the shotgun down on the ground. Okay?
Yeah.
Fires it, shooting him. Billy White lands face down in the dirt.
Oh.
They then roll him over, and Baisden fires again. So, I mean, at any point, was there any conversation that this is not a good idea? We need to notify the authorities.
No, I know.
And as far as Linwood Taylor, I did say I had met the guy, knew the guy. You know, I didn't ever hang out with him or anything like that. It was a transaction. He would come in the florist. But I'd already told you that he would constantly send balloons here and there to this woman and that woman.
Yeah.
He's got a way of persuasion about it.
Yeah.
So $20,000 is what he's going to get paid, which is a lot of money now. It's a lot of money in 1993.
It was a lot more then.
Yeah. He's really stiffing his uncle. His uncle is in a financial bind. He's been approached once to do this. He turned it down. He got approached again, decided to go through with it for $300. So
And
that takes a lot of planning, premeditated, some silver tongue work.
and do you realize that when he confessed, Smith said he had a real poker face. He never broke down when I spoke with him. He was like, "Yeah, I did it. I did it for the money." And it said that Miss Sylvia was taken into custody on February 13th, 1992, and charged with murder. Despite being confronted with Taylor's allegations, she has maintained her innocence.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Sylvia's past. Okay. We know she had a child at an early age as a teenager.
Yes, let's do that because I did skip over something.
Okay. So we know that she had it rough growing up. We know that she ended up her parents died at early age. We know
she was in foster home.
Yep, she was in an orphanage, and she was hyperactive. and her older sister actually got custody of her. We know she was short-tempered, and there's several stories that paint her as being a very sweet woman. There's a lot of stories to paint her as being a clean,
mean woman.
Yeah, and a mean woman. So, makes you wonder, but we know that she grew up, so she probably grew up in a sense of lack, and I wonder if Billy White represented the whole package, the promised land.
I'm wondering that. I think sometimes that could be it.
Yeah, because her
And
mom died when she was 5. So, and Woody Taylor. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead first. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say she got all of that, but it still didn't make her happy.
Yeah. Well, her first husband, Woody Taylor, they separated after 16 months, and I imagine a lot of that was being teenagers.
Yeah.
But he made the comment. He said he always felt like she had a problem, and that she never learned to love.
She didn't have the mama bonding, mama whatever.
Her mom died when she was 5.
Yeah.
So you think about it. She doesn't have those learning skills or social skills to cope.
Yeah.
And then she meets a man with a lot of money. She's not happy about how things are going. She has an affair. She starts plotting what she can do with all this money. Then one of the hitmen is a silver-tongued devil who can convince you to do things. And here we are. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said she never learned to love. So in 1959, long after, a little while later, after Woody Taylor and her dissolved their marriage in 1959, she married Leslie Ipock, and she'd had 2 boys with him.
But they seemed happy. I know he was the one that he was depressed.
Mm-hmm. He was depressed, suffered from chronic health problems. 1967, he supposedly died from a single gunshot wound to the side of his head. And this was something that I found eerie. Leslie, awfully, I'll get it out in a minute, often wanted Sylvia close by him. But for some reason, she decided to sleep in another room the night of his passing and claimed to have never heard the gunshot. So, did she get away with murder on that one?
She probably did.
And there's not a lot to go on from then. I mean, from 1967. Did he have an insurance policy on himself? We don't know.
I don't know.
That's just kind of strange. And in doing the research, the poison attempt?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she did.
Yeah, according, listeners, to some of the research we dug up, she had checked out books at the library. She had also purchased books that she had at home, marking on the pages, dog-earing the pages, things like that. What plants that were native to North Carolina that could act as a fast-acting poison in somebody's system. So she planning on killing somebody.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's just crazy.
It's crazy what goes through people's minds.
Yeah. So, she'd underline things on the books and pages. So she was planning on doing something.
Yeah. So and if she hadn't been caught, who knows what else she would have done.
Exactly. So let's fast forward to 1993 and tell us what happened then. We know that she was arrested and taken in custody February 13th, 1992, and charged with murder.
But Taylor's confession,
Mm-hmm.
also, it did something else.
Yep.
It implicated her in a second murder, that of her stepson, Billy Jr., almost 20 years earlier. He told police that while she was trying to recruit him to murder her husband, she said, "It's not that hard to do. I had a stepchild. I put a bag over it until it stopped breathing."
Notice how she worded that?
That's exactly how she worded it.
Over it.
It's in quotation marks.
Over.
It's not that hard to do. I had a stepchild. I put a bag over it until it stopped breathing. Quotation mark.
That's horrible.
Investigators spoke to Billy's children, who said that their baby brother feared their stepmother and that they had wondered if she was involved in his death.
Come to find out, little Bill was afraid of her. He didn't want to be alone with her. And if he was faced with the fact of being alone with her, he would cry and say, I don't want to be around Mama, or don't tell Mama.
Mm-hmm.
But that's heartbreaking.
That is very.
And when little Billy's body was exhumed, it showed other evidence of physical abuse. They found a 4-inch crack in the skull.
Uh-huh.
And that indicated that at some point prior to his death, he'd received a blow like that. I mean, that's a little 4-year-old kid. That's a deep concussion. I mean, that's a serious concussion.
North Carolina State's chief medical examiner, John Butts, reviewed his death and found it would have been physically impossible for him to swallow that piece of plastic found inside his throat.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it at the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a 10 by 12 piece of plastic. There's no bite marks on it. Nothing. It's
No.
Bless his heart. That's just horrible. So then she gets charged with that. So she goes to prison.
Yes.
She's found guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison. And rather than risk getting the death penalty, she pled guilty to second-degree murder.
In
the death of her husband, and then she was given an additional life sentence. Oh, man.
His body was exhumed. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now we get down to the point to where we're talking about Taylor, James Linwood Taylor, and then Baisden. Okay? So by cooperating with authorities and pleading guilty to first-degree murder, Linwood Taylor avoided the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison. He's now 72 years old, currently incarcerated at the Minimum Security Center at the Wake Correctional Center in Raleigh.
And Baisden was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He was executed by lethal injection in 2002.
Wow.
And
give me just a second here, and I'll read something interesting to you. I had found what his last meal was. I was going to read that to you.
Find that?
Yeah. I'll have to look for it a little bit, but he didn't want anything in particular. He wanted to eat the same thing that the inmates ate. And so his last meal, pop in here. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. And almost to it. I thought I had it right there on film.
While you're finding that, what I'm going to tell is his final words.
Sure.
I killed Billy White I'm sorry for it, and I pray that his family will come to forgive me and let time heal their wounds, and that's all we can do.
And again, you know,
At least he has took ownership of it, something Sylvia White has never done.
she never did. Basden didn't request anything special for his last meal, choosing to eat what all the others ate at the central prison that day. That meal was breaded veal, brown gravy, mashed potatoes, 3 bean salad, mixed vegetables, slices of loaf of bread, and orange and fruit punch. And you know, in doing the research for this, so you know, Basden has passed. He was put to death by lethal injection. He's buried at Pine Lawn Memorial.
Oh,
So
is he?
yes, he is, and so is Billy White
Who?
and Billy Jr.
I hope they're together.
So,
Miss Sylvia White is now 87.
yeah,
And believe it or not, I can't believe it, but on December 2nd, 2022, despite her guilty plea, she continues to maintain her innocence, and
yeah.
she was released.
That's you
Some of
know,
her cellmates say she's mean.
yeah. There was
I just had to say that.
well, it's true. I was reading in a forum, and a couple of people who claimed to have been cellmates with her. One of them bunked in the cell with her and said that the way she would talk to guards or other inmates, that she was brutally mean. Um, and the thing of it is, now that she's been released, there's nothing. You can't find anything on her at this point. You really can find very little on Linwood Taylor or James Linwood Taylor either. Just not that much information. But
Really?
yeah, but you know, this was a very big thing. We've seen this has been on Snap. It's been on the ID channel several different times. I mean, this really rocked our little part of the world back then.
It did.
It's just not something that we were expecting to happen.
No.
And I hope nothing like this happens again. But she served all this time in prison, has walked out a free woman, and hopefully she's old enough now.
She will not hurt anybody else.
She won't
God
hurt anybody
will.
else. Yeah. That poor baby, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. Billy White did not deserve to die on any level.
Mm-mm.
But this
He
little,
didn't.
but this
Just
little
because
baby,
he had money.
yeah,
No.
this little
That's all
baby.
she wanted. And that he was a paycheck to her. And that was wrong.
I think so. I think he was definitely he was a means to an end to her. And but you know, everybody that knew Billy White, I've never over the years heard anybody ever say anything bad about him. He was always such a nice guy, such a sweet person, kind person.
That is how he got his
Yeah.
sales. And that's how he got to where he was.
And you know, part of her allure, according to James Linwood Taylor, is that she claimed that Sylvia White claimed that Billy White was beating her. And there's
Oh
never
my
been
God.
there's never been any record of that. Nothing that could ever be found to see where that has happened. So just makes you wonder. Well, guys, I know this was a quick podcast today. We'd been working on this for a while. We've just had to get through a few things in our personal life, but we wanted to get this out here for y'all today. And Lisa, why don't you tell them about our new website?
Oh, check us out at www.bucklesberry.com.
Please do.
Sooner or later, we're going to have some merch up there.
Exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening today. Lisa, you want to take us on out and we'll call it a night?
Yes, I shall. We can just do it and do it and do it. And I sure hope y'all stay safe. And don't forget to find the missing. Have a great night.
All right, guys. Take care. Till next time.